This is the Blaisin Access Podcast, amplifying disability perspective one story at a time. Today is Monday, June 30th. I'm Blaise Bryant. I hope you are doing well, as it has been a couple of months since I've hit record here and talked to you. I'm surprised I remembered how to hit the record button, but in any event, it is really good to be back with you, as I'll be back for a little bit, and that is because I am going to be a dad here in a few weeks. We're having a baby boy, and later on this week, my lovely wife, Erin, and I will be talking all about that with you and the things that we've had to do to get ready for parenthood, because it really is a fascinating thing, and it truthfully is something that I cannot do justice without her. So really looking forward to doing that later this week. Also coming up later this week, unfortunately, is a tribute show to a very dear friend of mine, Denise Denoto, a terrific disability rights advocate, a very close friend of mine. She died much too young at 51 years old, so I'll be paying tribute to her. Denise was a frequent guest on the show and just always brought something to the table. One of the best guests I've ever had, and just very, very lucky. So that's what's coming up. And where the hell have I been, you ask? Well, as you might remember, I had to go to the Seeing Eye, the oldest guide dog school in the world in Morristown, New Jersey, to train with the new Seeing Eye dog, who is here in the studio with me. Meet my chocolate lab, Igor, who is laying like such a good boy behind me on his mat here in my office/studio, being such a good boy. Igor will be 2 end of August, so really looking forward to that. And he is such a good boy, and his work is just phenomenal. I vividly remember a couple of weeks, well, I'll start with the training. I mean, when I put the harness on him for the first time and we were doing a route, I just knew. There's such a confidence in Igor that I really need, and an unflappableness that I need, which unfortunately Victor was not able to provide. Victor is doing really well, living with us as a pet. He turned 3 in May, and he and Igor, they love to play. When Igor's not working, he's playing with Victor. And when he's not working or playing with Victor, he's goosing one of us in the butt with a toy or sleeping. It's just how it is. And we absolutely love it. They play, and I've used the analogy, it's a 15-round bout between Ali and Frazier, or Mike Tyson and insert whomever, George Foreman maybe. I don't know. I'm really not up on my boxing, but the point being is they go at it big time, and it's great to see. And Flash, of course, the elder statesman of the brothers, he turned 12 in February, is doing quite well, aside from some arthritis, which is just par for the course, getting older and having a long work career. He's doing really well, and he sees his younger brothers play, and he just stands there like a referee. All right, well, I'm here when you guys are done. Or if they get too close to him, he runs to one of us for safety. They all get along absolutely swimmingly and are looking forward to being big brothers for sure, which, again, that's going to be happening here in a few weeks. And we're just over the moon. This is our first child, and it's just really been a wonderful and enlightening learning curve for me as I get a sense of how to be a successful blind parent. I'm very grateful for all of the resources, the fellow blind parents that I've talked to, a lot of resources. And again, my lovely Erin and I are going to get into that later this week here on the show. Now, I can't sit here in front of this microphone without reacting to some of the things that have been happening, of course, here in New York State and on the federal level. We'll start federally first in this so-called big, beautiful bill, which is a very big bill, 940 pages worth. Beautiful, absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing beautiful about this bill. It creates drastic Medicaid cuts. It takes people off of health insurance. It creates a distribution of wealth that benefits the wealthy and hurts lower and middle class, and especially people living in poverty. It also rolls back a lot of protections that advocates fought so hard for. I mean, what we are seeing and what we have seen over the past 6 months with this incompetent administration, whom, as I said a few months ago when there was that tragic plane crash where 68 people were killed, and it was a plane and a military helicopter. There were 64, 65 people on the plane and 4 people in the helicopter, and no one survived. And this president got up there and blamed it on diversity, equity, and inclusion hires and disabled people. And at that point, I just said, not my president. I'm sticking to that because that's not someone who represents me. So that's just my own little soliloquy on that. And it's just totally unfathomable what's happening. The Administration for Community Living, an essential pillar to help disabled people live full, productive, independent lives, that's been dissolved and brought into other agencies under their umbrellas, and it's just an absolute disgrace. And here we are, we're fighting as tomorrow's July 1st, which means Disability Pride Month, which also means on July 26th, the 35th birthday of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA. We're fighting to protect this very critical legislation because this president, this Congress, and this Senate are all about rolling back the clock. That might sound like a political statement. It's not. It is factual. It's just horrifying what is happening on the federal level. And I hope and pray there are some Republicans, and I firmly believe there are good Republicans. Of course, there are bad Republicans. There are good Democrats, and of course, there are bad Democrats. There are good and bad people in each party. I hope and pray some of these good people can wake up, understand the realities, see what's happening, and how this will hurt their constituents who vote for them, and especially in Congress, where it's a 2-year term. Senate, you have a little bit more breathing room, although there are some senators who are up for re-election next year. They have things to think about as well. It's just an absolute disgrace. And now turning to New York, where our governor and legislature flat out ignored the dire crisis that is the Consumer-Directed Personal Assistance Program, which is a Medicaid-funded program that allows disabled people to hire their own home care workers, friends, neighbors, family member, whomever. They get the say, they call the shots, and the consolidation to Public Partnerships LLC. And I've talked about this pretty much ad nauseum here on the show. Again, it's been a couple months since I've talked to you, but there were some bills introduced to fix it. Assembly and Senate leadership flat out ignored us. And the advocacy group, the main advocacy group to help get things right, is a group called Caring Majority Rising. They're the political arm of an organization that's called the New York Caring Majority. They are part of a national organization called Hand in Hand, the Domestic Employers Network, just to give you all of those layers. And their advocacy strategy has been to just have a bunch of Democrats stand up there and choir preach. Well, I pointed out to their political director a few weeks ago, that strategy has to change. We have to get Republicans on board. Yes, Republicans in the New York State legislature are in a totally opposite position than what they are on the federal level. Federal level, the president, Congress, Senate, all Republican majority. In the New York State legislature, they are in the minority. Democratic governor, Democratic Assembly, Democratic Senate. Choir preaching can only go so far. I also, because I've been doing this stuff for a while, can tell you there are Republicans in the New York State legislature who understand this better than some Democrats. There's one assemblyman in particular. His name is Chris Tague. Tague is his last name. His wife is a home care worker. He understands the significance of this. Yet, he's been ignored because, he's not a Republican. Truth is, the New York Democratic Party is guaranteed absolutely nothing in the gubernatorial election in 2026. In Congress, yes, there are some districts who will be Democratic. New York is traditionally a blue state. But we don't know how things are going to shake out. So Republicans need to be brought into this conversation to show this is truly a bipartisan issue. And I've said that to them, so I'm not going behind anyone's back and saying anything. And Caring Majority also did something, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to forgive them for this. As I told you off the top of the show, we've got a tribute coming up for my late friend Denise Donato, who and I'll get more into it with the obituary. She died a few weeks ago, 51 years old. They claimed that Denise died solely because of a lack of home care, which was not true. Denise had been sick for quite a few months. Her health progressively declining. And that's ultimately what caused her death. But Caring Majority, they just ran with this false narrative of she didn't have enough home care and got CBS 6 here in Albany to do a news story and paraded one of Denise's home care aides out there to say essentially, well, if I didn't lose my car insurance, I would have been able to be out there to save Denise's life. And the reason I'm pointing this out and saying anything about it is because it is totally contradictory to the caring part of Caring Majority. It was unethical. It was a lie. And it is just patently unacceptable to exploit someone's death and make someone a martyr when they didn't ask for it. Maybe that screwed things up with the legislature in terms of getting this straightened out with the Consumer Directed Program. Probably not, because the governor wanted this monopolization to happen, and she would have vetoed the legislation, and then they would have had to try and override the veto. But the legislative session's been over now for a couple of weeks, going on 3 weeks. So probably a pretty moot point. And the lesson here, and while I am all for collaboration and advocacy and to make the world a more inclusive, accessible place, don't shy away from your ethics. Because I got a text saying the family was upset about the whole thing, and I let them know I was too, and we had a conversation about it, and they know my feelings. They know my feelings. And it's just a disgrace when here we are in the disability rights space. We want change to happen. We need change to happen, because if it doesn't, people will be put into nursing homes and other institutional settings where they're not going to get the care they need and end up dying because of that. And you pull this crap, and it just makes everything way more difficult. Because now it's well, how can we do better? Let's have a conversation. Which, I mean, show me your action plan first before I entertain a conversation. Because you know what you did. I mean, I had people from Caring Majority at Denise's services over apologizing to me, which says there was some intentionality behind this. And I mean, again, it's just stand by your ethics. So just a few things that I wanted to react to. I want to wrap this up with some really good personal news. I graduated from a program called Lights Camera Access, which is for emerging creatives with disabilities. Shout out to Einsoft Communications and my friend Tari Squire, who I'm hoping to have on the show next month, because she and a few other folks are doing some really cool stuff around the 35th birthday of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, along with 40th birthday for the last week of July being Disability Entertainers Week. I think I have that right. And Terry's just been doing so much throughout her long career as a disability rights advocate to increase media representation in the disability space and inclusion. Because we still have instances where actors who are meant to play the role of a disabled person is not being cast for those roles. There are instances where disabled people are not getting the opportunities in media that their non-disabled peers get. So we have a long way to go in that space. And yes, there's been some progress. It's important to acknowledge that. I mean, Ali Stroker getting a Tony, I believe first Broadway wheelchair user to do so. And then, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name, but the person who played Nessa Rose in Wicked, she's a wheelchair user. Let me see if I can just look this up really quick. Let's see. Who played Nessa Rose in Wicked? Let's see. Yeah. Marissa Bode. That's her name. I knew it was something like that. Marissa Bode is her name. So I'm glad I took a second to look that up, and I'm not going to edit that out because now you know how I do that. So we've made some progress, but certainly a long way to go, and I really hope in the future to be part of that progress. So again, to just put a bow on this rambling show, we're going to have a tribute show tomorrow for my dear friend Denise Donato. There'll be some folks chiming in with their stories as well as me playing back some of my favorite clips with Denise. And then later on this week, we'll have Aaron and I talking about our journey through adapted parenting and everything. And then we'll explore next week the intersectionality between disability and pride in the LGBTQ plus sense, and hopefully learning more about Einsoft Communications and Lights Camera Access and all the amazing work my dear friend Terry Squire does to make the goal of increased media representation for people with disabilities. So I know this was a long, rambling show, and I apologize for that. Just so much to say and so much to talk about, and I hopefully did this in a relatively concise way. I don't know if I did, but I tried really hard. Blaisin shows at gmail.com. That's BLAISIN shows at gmail.com. If you don't have social media, and I know people are abandoning it, so you're welcome to send me a note there. On Facebook, at Blaisin shows. Those are the two best ways to get in touch with me. And go check out my brand new website as well, blaizinshows.com. And if you are feeling so inclined to do so, I really would appreciate your support, because creating accessible content costs money. I have been taking it out of my pocket, largely or generally speaking, and donations certainly have helped offset some of that cost. Anything you are able to do, I really appreciate it, because even though I'm going to be a dad in a few weeks, I promise the money is going toward that. But I'll be back and doing shows and creating accessible content, and really could use your financial support. And I know times are tough and money is tight for a lot of people. And even if you're not in a position to donate, just spreading the word about it, very much appreciated. So thank you for listening to this and being a part of the show and subscribing, and tell your friends about it as well. I, over the past few weeks, have heard from a couple of people who have said, hey, I really like your podcast, and I miss having you be here, and I miss being there too. So it's great to be in community with you, and I'll be back with you tomorrow with a bittersweet tribute to Denise Donato. And Igor has been such a good boy, just laying here listening to me. He's just like, Dad, just end this thing already. So at his request, I will do that by saying again, you are listening to the Blaisin Access podcast, amplifying disability perspective, one story at a time. I'm Blaise Bryant, telling you to be kind, be safe, and have a great day.